Breaking tonight, less than 72 hours after the worst terror attack since 9/11 on U.S. soil, and President Obama today unleashed in anger and disgust, not on the gunman, but on Donald Trump and his approach to terror. Since that attack, Trump has slammed America's leaders as weak. He has called for President Obama's resignation, and then he hit the president for his refusal to use the term radical Islam, as many Republicans have. President Obama, in Donald Trump's own parlance, counterpunched hard. Watch.
We now have proposals from the presumptive Republican nominee for President of the United States to bar all Muslims from emigrating to America. We hear language that singles out immigrants and suggests entire religious communities are complicit in violence. Where does this stop? We've heard these suggestions during the course of this campaign. Do Republican officials actually agree with this? Because that's not the America we want.
The press took immediate note, with the New York Times writing, quote, Obama denounces Donald Trump for his dangerous mindset. USA Today declaring Obama rips Trump over proposed Muslim ban, radical Islam rhetoric. And Politico proclaimed Obama goes to war with Trump. The presumptive Republican nominee then responded right near the very top of a campaign event just a couple of hours ago.
I watched President Obama today, and he was more angry at me than he was at the shooter. He was more angry, and a lot of people have said this, the level of anger, that's the kind of anger he should have for the shooter and these killers that shouldn't be here.
Joining me now, Fox News senior political analyst Brit Hume. Brit, good to see you. What do you make of it?
Well, on purely political terms, the president was playing to his base, and Donald Trump was playing to his. The question is, though, who gets the better of the argument? And it seems to me that the president, at the moment at least, is in a weak position on this issue. He's vulnerable on this issue, and by extension, so is his former Secretary of State, who, of course, is the candidate to succeed him. So the president, it seems to me, was doing a little bit of political work there by attacking Donald Trump for the things that he's been saying, and Donald Trump obviously responding in kind. And you know, I think that at the moment, of course, Trump is the one who's saying we need a more aggressive approach to fighting radical Islam and attacking the president for not using that term. The president scoffed at that today, ridiculed that. And to many of his supporters, I'm sure that sounded pretty good. But to a lot of Americans, what the president's choice of words here, and this has been going on for years, and not just in this administration, has seemed a little odd. It seems to deny that there is a religious component to the fight we're having against terrorism. And there is a religious component to it, and there's no getting around it, but the president will never say that. And it makes people wonder, I think, whether he talks about what good would it do to name it. Well, it might help clarify the thinking, and I think there are a lot of people who think the president isn't thinking and hasn't been thinking clearly about this. He, after all, is the one who said not so many months ago, on the eve of the Paris terror attacks, that ISIS had been contained. Now his supporters say that he was referring to territory held and the rest of it, but nevertheless, there it was.
But not only that, Donald Trump's response really taps into something, does it not, Britt? Because we've seen the president, I mean, after the journalists were beheaded, come out there and make this sort of offhanded remark, and then he went off back to his vacation in Martha's Vineyard. Remember that?
Well, that was when he went. Yeah, that was when he went. Yeah, that was when he went and played golf in the aftermath of this hideous atrocity.
Right, and then he went. And he went and he fundraised the day of the Benghazi terror attacks. And Donald Trump's point that he seems angrier at Trump, who said some things that offended President Obama, he does seem angrier at Trump than he seems, or at least geared up, when he talks about ISIS.
That contemptuous tone that you saw in his remarks aimed at Republicans and more specifically at Donald Trump is not something that we have heard him express with regard to ISIS, except in a sense to minimize it back in the day when he was referring to, you may recall, as the JV team and the rest of it. But these comments were dripping with contempt We haven't heard that from him about that. We haven't heard it from him about what many people may consider weak-kneed leaders in Muslim countries who have not sufficiently, in people's minds, stood up to the radicals who have so heavily populated their countries and their national life.
Yeah, you hear it from him on guns. You hear it from him on Trump. And it's not that he needs to go out there and be emotional all the time, but the American people are feeling angry. And, you know, you would expect the commander-in-chief, who's also the comforter-in-chief, to tap into that. People want to understand that he gets it. I'll give you the last word, Britt.
Yeah, well, there is a role that is part of the presidency to be the person who reflects American sentiments and moods. And there are times when it is appropriate for a president to resist that. One thinks, for example, of President George H.W. Bush when the Berlin Wall was falling down and he refused to rejoice and carry on and be triumphant about it because he was worried about the relationship with Mikhail Gorbachev, which he managed, I think most people would now agree, very effectively. And I'm sure the president, when he's thinking about what to say about these Islamic terrorists, is trying to avoid a situation in which he fears that, you know, you could inflame the Muslim world against America if you kept talking about that. Hillary Clinton herself has said, you know, just in not too long ago that, well, you know, you say radical Islam, it sounds like you're condemning an entire faith. But for all that, the president certainly has not fulfilled the role of someone who reflects the nation's anger and anxieties about radical Islam and terrorism.
Just had a terrible terror attack. 50 people are dead.
Right.
I mean, it's, you know, that's what makes them upset. Anyway, Britt, it's great to see you.
Yeah, thanks, Megyn.
Well, President Obama is hitting Donald Trump for his tough talk. Political columnist Chris Cillizza of the Washington Post had a different take today, asking, quote, what if Donald Trump is exactly what people want after the Orlando shooting? Joining me now, Boris Epshteyn, Trump surrogate and Republican strategist, and Richard Fowler, nationally syndicated radio host and senior fellow at the new Leaders Council. Great to see you both.
Good evening.
Let me start with you on that, Richard, as somebody who doesn't like Trump. Do you think he's capturing the mood of the nation now better than President Obama or Hillary?
I don't think so at all, right? And I think the American people are definitely hurting. I think the LGBTQ community across this country is hurting from the hate crime that took place at the Pulse nightclub. And I don't think being angry, spewing hatred is the way to solve it. And that's what Donald Trump has done. I think his supporters love it. The American people, the LGBTQ community, they don't like it. And that's part of the problem. They're the victims here tonight.
Boris, I don't know. You know, all along, Trump has been able to find a seam in the society that nobody else has found.
Of course, all of America's hurting. No one community hurts more than another. All of America's hurting, and Donald Trump's been out there saying he wants to protect all of America. Radical Islam is anti-woman, anti-gay, anti-freedom of religion, anti-Christian, anti-Jews. Radical Islam is the scourge that's causing these attacks, and it's vital to go out there and name your enemy. In World War II, Richard, I'll let you finish. Now let me finish. In World War II, what would it be like if America were fighting the Nazis and say, well, we're not going to name our enemy? Well, you have to know who your enemy is to engage your enemy. And that is why Donald Trump leads Hillary Clinton in polling on national security by 10 points. And I will tell you that it'll be higher now because he is the one that's leading this country right now.
He's ahead of her by
Barack Obama
8
or
points
HRC.
in the latest poll.
Well, I hear that,
That's
Megyn,
right.
but I'm glad that Boris brought up World War II because what Donald Trump is calling for by banning all Muslim travel into the United States is the same as Japanese internment camps right here in America in World War II.
Legally, you're
That's not. Are you going to let me? Are you going to let me
He's not talking about
finish?
American citizens. But Richard, just to correct the record, he's not talking about American citizens.
Well, he hasn't specified if he's talking about American citizens or not.
Yes, he has specified it. You just said it was influx.
Originally, it was unclear, but he clarified it. And he said now we're talking about foreign Muslims trying to come into the United States, and that it would be temporary and there would be exceptions.
Fair enough, Megyn, but that's still that type of language. The idea that you're going to punish a whole religion for one crazy, hateful individual or a couple crazy, hateful individuals is. Can I finish, Boris? Is
You're just
one,
wrong.
it's one, un-American, and it's two, not part of our politics. It's not who we are as a country. Look at what's happening down in Orlando. You look at the LGBTQ center. They're open arms saying, "Come, we welcome you." The opposite of what Donald Trump is spewing. The absolute
Richard,
opposite.
you're incorrect historically, as it was just became obvious. You're incorrect that it's not the same as the Japanese.
It is the same.
Secondly, it's completely.
It's the same rhetoric.
It's
the same rhetoric of hate that caused the shooting at the Pulse nightclub.
So now you're just
it is the same rhetoric that caused the shooting at Pulse nightclub. Hateful, xenophobic,
Thank you both
racist.
for being here. I'm coming up on a break. There's been a lot of mystery about what went down the 3 hours Omar Mateen held hostages at Pulse nightclub. Tonight, we'll tell you what happened.